Namaskar, this is my 46th lecture, and it's best to understand what I'm going to talk about: the psychoanalytic vision of the colonized mind. In this case, I'm going to apply it to the Hindu mind and the partition, especially in reference to Bengal, and how we can deal with it via feminist theory. First, let's look at a couple of scenarios to understand what I'm saying. Now, the first is from a book by Dr. Sachi Dastidar. This is the name of the book, Bengal's Hindu Holocaust. And I'm reading a quotation from the book, and then I'm going to apply psychoanalysis there. Dr. Dastidar says, "It is worth mentioning that all the elected Hindu leaders of the pre-partition Bengal legislators, including Hindu communist Mr. Jyoti Basu and Mr. Ratan Lal Brahman, their other leftist and all members voted for the partition of Bengal into Hindu West Bengal and Muslim East. Mr. Basu is a native of Dhaka in Bangladesh, while Mr. Brahman is a Nepali-speaking Bengal citizen from Darjeeling area. Mr. Basu chose not to live in his Muslim-majority Pakistan, Bangladeshi homeland. On the other hand, with the face of mass killing of Hindus by Muslim League supporters of partition, practically the entire elite Hindu Bengali leadership of Pakistan all deserted their poor fellows overnight for the safety of Hindu India while practicing Hindu-Muslim cohabitation." So this is one scenario. And then there is another scenario that we are going to talk about. And it also pertains to another political leader of Bengal. And then we are going to analyze their mentality through using feminism and psychoanalytic theory. I'm reading again from this book, Bengal's Hindu Holocaust. These are both empirical data from his book. Quotation: "The first casualty on October 10th, 1946 was Mr. Surendranath Basu, a landed Hindu of Naipur village." He's talking about 1946 Noakhali, followed by Mr. Rajendra Roy Chaudhary, the president of the district bar association, and 20 members of his family of Korpara village. This was followed by Mr. Chitta Dattarai, a learned man of Shaista Nagar village, and his family. 19 men of the extended families of Mr. Ramama, Mr. Kalikamal, Mr. Shashi Patwari of Gopalbagh village. Now comes the interesting thing. I'm going to read it slowly. "Soon the attack turned to the vast majority of Hindus who were poor and belonged to the oppressed caste. Rai Sahib Nagendra Kumar Soor of Noakhali district bar was kidnapped, asked to dig his own grave, and then beheaded by the Islamists. His son, Prashant Kumar Soor, fled to the safety of Hindu India's Calcutta, eventually become a minister in the Communist Party of India, Marxist, and the Communist Party mayor of Calcutta. Yet he never tried to protect oppressed people he left behind. There's no record of Mayor Soor's grief and remorse for the loss of his father, his family, his native land." Now, how do we analyze these symptoms? All right, so let's go back. This is a little bit repetitive, nonetheless, I'm saying it, to Freud's gender identity development. The driving force is the libido, the life force, oral, anal, all these are undiffused gender. There's no gender distinction, no identities. It's only in the genital state, according to Freud, via the castration complex, that the identity develops. How? For the male, the realization comes that unless he gives up his search for infinite, unbounded pleasure, he cannot have his organ of pleasure. He'll lose it if he goes after unbounded pleasure, because everything has to have a limit. So he gives that up, and he gives up his desire for the fantasy mother. We talked about all of this. But it doesn't go away. It goes to his unconscious, which is his what is it? The desire for the phallic mother, the unbounded happiness, the unlimited, not happiness, I would use the word pleasure. Now, this is how gender identity develops. And For the woman, it's much more circuitous, according to Freud. According to Freud, she realizes she's already castrated. So what is a threat for the little boy is an accomplished fact for the little girl. She is only a little bit of it left, the clitoris. So she has another psychic castration, which is that mother is not the phallic mother. She doesn't have the phallus. How can she give it to me? And so she runs to father to get the phallus. He doesn't give it. She runs to mother. She runs to father. No one gives her. So she settles for her biological destiny, according to Freud, which is substitute the original desire for the phallus, the unlimited pleasure, to a desire for baby from father or father substitute. But the desire for the phallus goes into the unconscious because nothing goes away. Desires always remain. This is also true in the Buddhist wheel of life, which is why we come back over and over again. That's a different issue. It goes to the unconscious, and the conscious mind is, I want a baby. So the baby is a substitute for the phallus, for the mother's phallus. If she does not settle for her biological destiny, there are two options according to Freud. She becomes frigid. Since I cannot have as much pleasure as the boy, I won't have any pleasure at all. Or she becomes homosexual. Father has given me the phallus, I have the phallus. So this is the female gender identity in Freud. All along 1920s, there was a huge debate about whether castration complex can be a way to explain female development, gender development identity. Because if I don't have something, how can I be scared of losing it? I don't have $100, how can I be scared of losing it? And there was a huge debate, especially it came from the female psychoanalyst. And we are going to talk about two female psychoanalysts here. They were trained by Freud. One is Marie Bonaparte. She said, I agree with Freud on all of it except his theory of libido. He talked about libido as the life force, the search for infinite pleasure. And that's where I don't agree with him, because that's only the masculine libido. There is another libido called masochism, because woman's sexuality, according to Marie Bonaparte, is always tied to pain. Menstruation, coitus, intercourse, pregnancy, lactation. All of these are painful. There's nothing pleasurable in a woman's sexuality. And if she can adopt that masochistic libido in her body, she can enjoy sex. Because for her, the pain is pleasure. That's what masochism is. Now, Helen Deutsch, who is also Freud's student, she goes a little bit further. She says, what did Freud say? What is Freud's definition of femininity? Let's get this clear. Freud's definition of femininity is that which lacks and that which is going to go on desiring the phallus. That's the unconscious of the female. Because we only desire what we don't have. If I don't have water, I'm thirsty, I'll desire water. Once my thirst is quenched, I'm not going to desire water. So for Freud, the definition of femininity is the desire for the phallus, the feminine desire par excellence. Because masculine, he already possesses a phallus. He won't desire it. Now let's go back and see what Deutsch says. Deutsch says the femininity cannot be defined as the desire for the phallus. It's much more complex than that. It's the masochistic libido is what circulates in women's life. And women's time is not linear. It's circular. Meaning what? Meaning women want the phallus in their body. That's what Freud also said. So she gets it in intercourse. Then she loses it after the intercourse is over. Then she gets the phallus in her body when she's pregnant. Then she loses it when there's childbirth. Then she gets the phallus back very close to her when she's lactating, when she's nursing the baby. Then she loses it. She again goes back to the coitus, the intercourse, and gets the phallus in her body. So her entire life cycle is driven by this masochistic libido of getting the phallus, losing it, getting the phallus, losing it. So it's a circular process. Time is not linear. Julia Kristeva also talked about it. Women's time is being forced to be linear. to adjust to male linear time, but it's not linear, it's actually secular. And for Helen Deutsch, there is no distinction between a mother and a woman, because that's the masochistic libido that's circulating on and on. Of course, she didn't say like Bonaparte, if she can enjoy her pain, then that's what her pleasure is. Now we go to colonized people. Who is the colonized subject? See, colonization happens, of course, materially, economic exploitation and so forth. Just like slavery, Aristotle's slaves said that the slaves cannot be independent because they don't have rationality. Greek women have confused rationality, so they cannot be independent. Slaves have no rationality. But why do we need the slaves in the oikos, Aristotelian oikos, which is the household? This was my first lecture, to produce things of daily necessity, everything that our market does. Now, for colonized people, the most important thing about colonization is the colonization of the consciousness and the colonization of language. So, this masochistic libido is what circulates and keeps the system of colonization intact. And that's what's happening with these people. The way I talked about it, especially the second one, Mr. Prashant Shur, who never talked about all the pain in his life, about his father's beheading by the Islamists and so on. This is exactly what happens to women. They keep their domestic violence, their sexual abuse intact within them. Although they know it's the silence, that whole silence, and that's the whole diagnosis of the feminist theory. That's why the feminist methodology is consciousness raising. One talks and talks and talks and realizes that none of these are natural, like Freud says. These are all systems of power that are playing in our lives. So the system of power, more or less his own position as a mayor, all this, the masochistic libido is continuously working. And Freud will say it's all biological. But we know it's systems of power. Feminist theory has said that it's systems of power, it is ideology, which is also Marxist theory. And it is very well documented how Althusser says labor power is produced in ideology. Similarly, for colonized people, they keep on doing this and doing this and doing this, repressing their own abuse, stories of their own life, of brutality, and they go on maintaining the system, saying something else. There's complete silence. Till a break comes. And a break does come, whether it's for women or for colonized people like I just read out. And that is the reason the silence is so much there. And it carries intergenerationally. That's why later we are going to talk about intergenerational trauma of the partition and abuse and colonization and so forth. So that's my short lecture on masochism and this lack of speech and so forth. Also, to let you know, I will be offering this course on genocide. The poster is there on my Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter. You can go and register through our organization, SWACA. There is a QR code. You can scan it, pay. It's 2,000 in Indian currency. And if you cannot scan, just send an email to the email given there, which is swakaharshitafoundation@gmail.com, and they'll take care of it. And we are going to deal with all of this, the United Nations definition of genocide, then a genocide from a feminist and post-colonial point of view, and then we are going to apply it to the Hindu genocide. For today, that is all. Please subscribe, like, comment. Thank you. Namaskar.